coming to you from a rainy, cold Pullman, and the performance on the field for the Buffs wasn't any better than the weather out here today.
It wasn't, but I do want to point out that I got half of my prediction right. I said that Washington State would score 41 points.
Just 35 points off on the other side.
Just 35. Yeah, just an ugly performance for the Buffs. And, I told you, before we did our preview video that, I kind of did that. I just wanted to throw some optimism out there and say, hey, the Buffs are going to win. But, this place has been such a house of horrors. I've been here 3 times with this team, and it's just been brutal every time. And they don't play well here. The weather's been horrible the last 2 times. I don't think they respond to it. And for me, that's surprising. I thought, even when I saw the forecast, I think this team will handle it better just because how much Mel Tucker emphasized mental toughness. But I don't think this team was mentally tough tonight. I think that they let it get to them, and that snowballed from the start, and it turned into an ugly night.
I'm always apprehensive to call out a play caller because it's obviously easier said than done. But one thing, I made a comment before the game that this is a game where Jay Johnson can't outsmart himself.
Yeah.
And they were running the ball very efficiently, and they went away from that at times when they got into Washington State territory. And again, it's easy to second guess when it doesn't go right, because if those are completed, then it's a whole different story. But I really thought this was a game where they needed to ride their backs, and their backs were doing a good job.
Yeah, they were, and there was that drive. I don't remember when it was, but they had 4 straight runs. I think it was Fontenot twice, Mangum twice. They pick up 37 yards between them on those 4 runs, and then it's 2nd and 10, and you go LaVisca and the Wildcat. And I know that play works and gets you, 3-4 yards on a 3rd and 1 or a 3rd and 2, things like that. But to do that on 2nd and 10, I thought was odd, and that set up a kind of a 3rd and long, and they weren't able to convert there, and it just didn't turn into points. And they're in the red zone there. Why not keep pounding? This is a run defense for Washington State that's not very good, and they showed it tonight. But Colorado had to go away from the run because the score got out of hand.
You mentioned Colorado's struggles here in Pullman. Steven Montez's struggles against this Washington State team. 3 different times he went up against the Cougars. 0 touchdowns. I asked Mel Tucker if he thinks he's pressing. I don't know what to make of Steven Montez at this point. I understand the frustration from the fan base, but the bottom line is they're going to roll with Steven Montez the rest of the season because they have to, and they have no other choice.
Yeah, he's their guy. As much as fans, and we saw it all over Twitter tonight, as much as there's fans that want to turn the page on the quarterback position, that's not going to happen until the end of the season, or in case something happens to Steven, and hopefully he doesn't get hurt. And I hope there's no fans out there rooting for him to get hurt. But he's the guy in the next 5 games if he's healthy. He's just got to play better. And I thought he played fairly well the first 5 games, minus the Air Force game, but he played well in the 4th quarter of that game. The last 2 games have been brutal. 6 interceptions, no touchdowns, and it's been his 3 performances against Washington State have just been not good. I know he doesn't want to see these Cougars ever again.
Tyler Lytle comes in with about 8 minutes in the game, injured on the first play. Blake Stenstrom comes in, throws a pick on his first attempt. Again, Steven Montez is the guy. It's too bad those guys couldn't gain a little confidence out here. Even James Stefano struggled tonight. It was just a miserable performance for the Buffs offensively. Yeah. Aside from Alex Fontenot, he averaged 9.5 yards per carry.
Yeah, Alex Fontenot was fantastic, and I think he's running the football. He's the guy that I think you and I have talked about it before. That going into this year, it's like he's been okay, but I think he's been one of the more impressive guys on offense all year. I'm starting to really like the way he runs the football, and he had a couple runs tonight that were just very impressive, and I thought Jaron Mangum ran the ball pretty well too. So their run game was just fine, but when you're down 30 points or 28 points, you can't keep it going.
Colorado's defense didn't play well. They're probably not going to play well given how it's a patchwork defense, but they did hold Washington State to just under 500 yards. If you told me this defense was going to hold Washington State to under 500 yards, I know it was close to that, but I would feel really good about Colorado winning this game.
Yeah, and it's funny because Anthony Gordon, 369 yards, 4 touchdowns, that's really good. Well, that's his 2nd lowest passing total of the year. He had hit 420 or more 5 out of 6 games, so you kind of held him down a little bit, so maybe you feel good about that. Really, the defense, first quarter was not good, but really started to gain some traction in the middle of this game, maybe get some confidence, but when you're not putting anything together with that offensively, it doesn't really matter. It's going to spiral out of control, and Washington State's too good. They're going to capitalize on some mistakes for the offense, and they did that.
There was times out there tonight. There were 7 first-year buffs out there defensively. If you want to look at this glass half full, it's tough to do that. But
Right.
Mark Perry, he's starting to fly around a little bit. He's going to keep making mistakes. He's young. He's a guy I'm really excited about his future.
Yeah, and I had a chance actually to chat with him outside the locker room, and I asked him that. I said, "Are you starting to get more confidence now? These last 2 games you're playing more." And he goes, "Yeah, I'm starting to get the feel of the game speed and things like that." He's a guy. I mean, he's one of those young guys that struggled along with the rest of them, but it sounds like he's starting to feel a little more comfortable. I think he's going to be a player at some point. Whether it's this year, I don't know. But I talked to KJ Trujillo briefly as well, and I asked him. I said, "Hey, there's a lot of you guys that are playing and obviously struggling, but do you think this is going to bode well for the future?" And he said, "Yeah, I think it absolutely will." And I mean, you got him, Mark Perry, Tariq Luckett was out there for the first time. All those defensive linemen. We saw Josh Allen, Jamar Montgomery out there that hadn't played. There's a lot of guys out there that are trying to do anything defensively to get something done. A lot of guys are going to be back.
Darian Rakestraw with the lone takeaway in this game. Aaron Maddox didn't make the trip. Strange situation. He met with the media Monday. He met with the media again at the Tuesday press luncheon. Mel Tucker didn't want to specify. We're speculating here, but it didn't sound like an injury was the reason he didn't travel.
I think if it was an injury, they would have said that, yeah, there's something firing up with his leg. I think the fact that, when Mel Tucker says, "I don't want to get into it right now, I'll have hopefully more information next week," that doesn't sound like an injury. There's something going on there. And it's too bad because Aaron, I know I can probably speak for you. He's one of my favorite guys to talk to on this team. I think he's a pretty good player when he's healthy, and was just kind of getting back from that leg injury. I don't know what his future holds right now, and I guess we'll find out on Monday.
Mustafa Johnson started, didn't see a ton of action. He was subbed out a lot. Don't know if that's them getting him back in the mix or this was a game they didn't want to press it too much. Obviously, they need him back for the stretch run here. Short week, USC coming to town, but it's a short week for them as well, and they have to travel. I know CU fans are going to be very pessimistic right now, but there's still 5 games left. There's still a lot for this team to accomplish here down the stretch.
I know it's hard to believe right now, and I was chatting with some fans out by the bus a little bit ago. I know it's hard to believe this right now, but the Bucs can win the next 3 football games. I mean, they're winnable football games. And again, I know this sounds crazy right now, but USC, Pac-12 history, those Friday night games, the road team does not do very well. I know CU's never beat them, but that's a game that maybe you can win. If you win that, the next 2 are against 2 teams that have really struggled right now. UCLA and Stanford, those are teams that you can get. And again, there's nothing from the last 2 weeks that's made me believe this team will win those 3. But I think that when I look at the first 5 weeks, I'm like, yeah, this team, if they can somehow harness some of that, they can win those next 3 or any of them.
All right, well, it's a forgettable evening here in Pullman for the Buffs. The second straight week they've been blown out on the road. Again, they go back to Folsom Field. We'll be back with more analysis on Monday.